you ready to get started, Ann?
Sure.
Okay, great. We are recording, so we'll be making this available afterwards. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Dawley. I'd like to welcome you to the Online Teaching Happy Hour. This is our special guest today, Ann Kozma, and I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, Ann?
It's Kozma.
Kozma.
Yeah.
And your job title is Education Innovation Lead at FlipGrid. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you. And then welcome to everybody here. And I'd also like to introduce Lynn Lear, who's going to be joining us as our co-host. Do you want to wave hi, Lynn? And Lynn is an educator out of New Orleans, hanging on to her hat as the hurricanes start to maybe approach a little bit. So Ann, really happy to have you here today. This is an opportunity for us to get to know you better as both a person and a professional. And kind of hear about some of the work that you're doing. So if you wouldn't mind, can you just give us a basic overview of who you are and kind of what you do? What are you about?
So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this happy hour. I'm so excited to connect with all of you. Lisa and I go way back to the years that I was working in Southern California in the Fullerton School District. That's where my start in education began. I spent 10 years in the classroom and then moved into a teacher on special assignment role in my district supporting K-8 teachers, and almost 2 years ago joined Team FlipGrid as one of the educator innovation leads. And my why in the classroom was empower authentic voice for an authentic audience. And I love that my personal mission aligns so beautifully to the mission of FlipGrid to empower every learner on the planet to share their voice but respect the diverse voices of others. So I have the great honor of being what I describe as a teacher helping teachers. I do a lot of professional development. I work on a team called the engagement team. So there's 3 of us who are teachers and a few others, and we work to support the educator community as they're using FlipGrid as a pathway in their classroom to provide scholars the opportunity to create, to share, to celebrate, and to showcase their unique voice. And I just love helping other people explore pathways and possibilities with technology. And I'm super excited to connect with you all tonight.
Hey, Wesley. Good to see you.
Hello. Good to see you too.
And welcome. Ann was just introducing herself, and you talked a lot about how your personal mission about empowering student voice aligns so tightly with the mission of FlipGrid. Could you just share a little bit about what, in your experience, took you there? Like, how did that become a focus for you and a passion for you?
Yeah, so what's unique about my experience in the classroom, we went one-to-one in 2010 with the first generation of iPod Touch that didn't even have a camera on the device. And we used to plug in these teeny tiny microphones to allow students to record themselves. And immediately, when my scholars were able to capture their voice and share it in unique ways, we started with book talks, which is an easy entry point into, I guess, reflecting on a learning journey. It kind of shifted everything for me. And then when we went to the next device and had a video and a camera on our device, the power of story and the power of sharing and creating, it transformed everything for me. And as a classroom teacher, I saw that transformation not only in the ownership my students put into their work, the pride, the transformative change they experienced in the way they had opportunities to create. And that changed everything. And their, I guess the way I saw that they were investing in their own learning journey, if that makes sense. And so I felt called to help more students by helping more teachers. And when they created the teacher on special assignment positions in my school district, I applied knowing I could help more students have that transformative learning experience by helping teachers see new possibilities and shift practice and have safe places to take risks in their own professional learning. So it was working with educators that I began using FlipGrid. We did a lot of professional development and would have educators reflect on their professional learning and almost hold themselves accountable by making commitments to trying new things. I love to say play to learn and push all the buttons. So we would use FlipGrid for professional reflections. And I started doing a lot of training in the classroom, showing teachers how they could use FlipGrid in the classroom to empower their students' voice. And it just was this beautiful, like, journey. Like, it just kind of walked in tandem with what I was so passionate about. And
it's so interesting, though, that the very, very, very beginning of the journey was literally having your students record their voice. Mm-hmm. When you say student voice, it's not like, you know, a metaphor or, you know, it's literally recording students' voice. Right.
Reading books. Yeah. So I taught in a Title I school and we had 87% of our population was English learners. So I had I was a first grade teacher, had a lot of pre-readers and emerging readers, and wanted to help develop those phonics skills, pre-reading skills, reading skills, oral language fluency. Mm-hmm. So it was read stories and listen to fluent readers, track their own progress over time. And I loved to celebrate the journey because it clicks for people at different times. So we would celebrate when you know, they would hear that change in themselves and celebrate the journey together. So there were so many unique moments in the classroom. And you know, like when you're excited about something, you talk about it. So I couldn't stop talking about it and just wanted to help other people.
And I was thinking when you said the thing about authentic voice, I wasn't thinking just simply about reading, but about finding who they are as a person. And I was struck with the fact that you were trying to do that with first graders. And I thought maybe you could say just a little bit more about how you actually help them for them to become themselves and to own their own learning.
That's a great question. So I believe when we say student voice, you hear a lot of people use the phrase voice and choice. I would give my students, even as first graders, which we're talking 6 and 7 years old, choice. And if they wanted to do something digitally or if they wanted to use a paper pencil or a different media, I let them choose that as first graders, and that partially was part of letting them own their own narrative, if you will, and choose the tools they wanted to use. We did a lot of all about me. When they create, they got to have the freedom to express themselves in different ways. And I think part of it was just a lot of conversation and focusing on relationships and learning who the scholars are in your classroom as unique individuals, and stopping direct instruction sometimes and just talk and take those moments of life and conversation to pivot into learning moments, if you will.
Can you talk a little bit about, because of the focus on student voice and what FlipGrid does as a tool is give student voice in a whole new way with video and voice and other features and functionality. We're in a time of protests where people are wanting their voice to be heard. We at many levels, and I'm wondering what you're actually seeing as you work with K-12 schools, some of the challenges and some of the responses to that need for students to be able to express themselves.
Yeah, and even in the last few days, especially as folks everywhere are participating in what's going on in various ways, we've seen incredible examples in the last 24, 48 hours of the ways educators are using FlipGrid to give their students a safe space to reflect and to share and to process out loud. And one of the things, technically, if you're not familiar with the FlipGrid platform, educators can moderate a topic, which means videos remain private to the educator and are not public on the grid. So we see examples of educators simply saying, here is a safe space for you to reflect, and here is a safe space for you to talk. Other educators, when it's agreed upon in the community, they do make videos public. And we've seen a really incredible educator out of New York City share recently a 2-minute video that one of her young scholars shared, simply reflecting on what it means to be a Black student in 2020. And pausing to listen is critical. I'm learning that as a almost 42-year-old woman. I think that's something that we do as humans. We need to give respect to other people's voices and listen to them. So I love that there's freedom and flexibility in the way people use FlipGrid to create spaces for folks to create and share. We've seen folks, I just saw a tweet today that somebody was doodling and almost using the annotating tool and the digital whiteboard tool within to share a sketch. And sometimes that's how people process feelings and emotions and thoughts. So with respect to learning modalities and the different way that people process and share, I love that within the FlipGrid camera, there are pathways to create, which ultimately means pathways to process and pathways to reflect and share. I think that part of the journey for some folks who might not be prepared to facilitate conversations, they are using resources we have available. I've seen so many incredible things shared on social about pieces of literature that educators are using to facilitate conversations. We have resources available in our Disco library that are ready-made bite-sized topics, individual topics educators can take and use right away. So if they don't know how to start the conversation, I'm doing this myself, exploring resources so that I can engage in those meaningful conversations and pausing to listen and learn and reflect.
You had mentioned to me earlier the Disco library, which I haven't seen. I don't know if you want to share that or...
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm always up for learning new function tools.
Okay.
And I think the audience would appreciate it too if you haven't.
Yeah, so let me do this. I have my screen share. I'm going to go ahead. I don't really think I need sound yet, so I'm going to go ahead and share this. You all should be seeing the screen, which is the FlipGrid Disco library. So within your FlipGrid account, you have the different tabs across the top, my activities, my grids, Grid Pals, Disco library. And before I go on, if you are brand new to FlipGrid, first of all, hi and welcome. Let me just tell you, it's a video communication platform, but there are endless possibilities for how students can create content, even if it's content where they're not shown on camera, or even if it's a video content that has no audio to it. So
can I just ask you a general question about FlipGrid? I actually use the FlipGrid with my graduate students.
Oh, awesome.
Is it designed for K-12 specifically though? Would you say?
No, it was started at the University of Minnesota. So it started in a graduate program when Dr. Charlie Miller was using it. He needed to use it, so he and a buddy coded the very first version of FlipGrid over the course of a weekend because he was leaving to go study different education systems around the world, but he wanted to connect with his 12 graduate students for Socratic circles and seminars, but knew that geographic distance and time would be a factor. So he created this asynchronous video communication tool, and they forgot to write one line of code to lock it down to the university. So some teaching librarians found it, and when people are excited, they talk. So it just sort of spread. Yeah, it spread. So I love to say, we say pre-K through PhD, but really truly there's no right or wrong age to do it. We've seen incredible uses. There was a 92-year-old grandmother in Wales sharing her experience from World War II with her granddaughter's classroom of students studying history. So there's no right or wrong way to use it. There's no age group. So definitely higher ed purposes, elementary, middle school, high school. And so on my screen, you'll notice in the Discord library, and I'll show you how you can find resources for all the different grades. The Discovery Library is a database of resources from educators around the world, as well as featured partners. So we have a few spotlights at the top, but what I'm going to do is just scroll down and show you. There are weekly hits, which are just trending topics from around the world. I'm going to take a moment to pause right here at the featured playlist, and you'll see incredible partner content from folks like Code.org, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Wonderopolis, Skype, the World War II National Museum, the Met, Microsoft Hacking STEM, Nearpod Vocabulary. And what these are playlists from these partners of bite-sized content. So for example, I'm going to click on just this random one. Do you have the time? And it almost shows you just like a student view into a topic. And what a topic is that individual discussion or individual assignment that you want to engage your community in. So this is like a question prompt, and then an educator can take and add it to their own grid community. And it's like taking that content from somebody and bringing it into their own community and using it. But beyond these partner topics, if you can see on the screen, we have over 20,000 topics. And when I coach teachers, I say, don't worry, you're never going to find the ends of the internet. So don't feel like you have to search through 20,000 topics. Filter it for your audience. So let's say that we want to look at a high school, perhaps we're a world language teacher. I'm going to come into language learning, and then it'll filter, and you'll notice now there's 656 topics. But I love to show folks that if you use some of these column headers, you can sort based on use. And that's just a way to sort of vet which topics are being used by others and if it's meaningful and relevant for your content. But it's, a limitless database that folks continue to add to and partners continue to add to. So
are you able to demo, like if I took one of those and brought it into my grid, what I would get? What is it actually?
Yeah. So actually, I think I just minimized my screen. Here we go. I created a space for us. Are you still seeing my screen?
Yay.
I created a play space for us for tonight. So anybody, if you're on a mobile device, you would need to download and use the free FlipGrid app. But if you're on a web device, you simply go to flipgrid.com, and I'll show you from the start.
How fun.
But I created a grid, literally to play and push buttons. So this is an example of a topic, and it just says my aha moment. What's a big takeaway from today? Did you learn something new? Did you have an aha moment? And then what you would do to participate is simply click on that big green plus sign. And I said, you have to authorize in with an email account. So I'm going to go ahead and click on mine and log in. And then here we go. I would have to disable my camera here for a moment. So I'm actually not going to go through the step. But you would click on the buttons and push buttons.
Right. So
simply going to flipgrid.com would create that for you. And I'm going to go ahead and start from the beginning. On the screen, you just simply enter what's called a flip code. And that's like a unique join code. So if you were to type in Jacobs Institute, you're going to find a grid where I would encourage you to push buttons and play to learn.
That makes it easy.
And it'll just take you right there. And then if you click right here, you're going to notice there's a different topic if you wanted to respond. All about me, a whole different prompt where you could share. So we could pause. We could let some folks push buttons now. I could demonstrate how do you set this up, or if you have other questions. I'm flexible. You know me.
Well, while people are pushing buttons, so feel free to play around with that. I know Lynn has more questions for you, and I have a question for you that I skipped over, but I want to go back to. And this is about you and your own professional journey into FlipGrid. So I was thinking about, traditionally, a lot of educators start as classroom teachers and then get their administrative credential, go to work in the district, or right? It's like that little progress up. And then you made the move over to a vendor, over to the commercial side. And we see a lot of teachers that get involved in ed tech becoming teacher ambassadors and teacher, right? And they a lot of them end up going to work for education companies. I know there are teachers watching this interested in that pathway that you took. And could you talk a little bit while people are playing about that pathway? Was that, was that an easy choice for you? Did you have concerns about it? How has it played out for you?
Yeah. So that's actually a great question. And I followed that same pathway. As 4 years in as a TOSA, I was wondering, what do I do next? What do I do next? And I did go for my administrative credential, thinking becoming an assistant principal or principal is that next step, and where I would be able to impact a community greater than the TOSA role, looking for those next steps. I was a teacher ambassador for multiple ed tech companies and platforms, tools that I was passionate about using, not only in my own classroom, but as a teacher, working with fellow educators. And after about 4 years as a TOSA, I was doing my admin credential, but wondering, what's my next step? What's my next step? I worked a lot with our state affiliate of the ISTE program. So Q in California is our state affiliate of ISTE. I did a lot of work with them, doing lead learner type roles in professional development, and contemplated, what does it mean perhaps working as my own independent contractor, fearing the safety and security of a school district and health insurance and all those kinds of things. But all the while, I was very loud and very vocal about what I was passionate about, especially on social media. I love Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, please feel free to connect. I love that conversations that begin in an event like this do not have to end when we leave this event. The conversations continue. So I made it known to a few folks that, hey, I'm a passionate educator. I love helping others. If you ever have, the need for educators, if you're expanding, hi, my name's Anne. And sometimes it's just those word of mouth conversations to even start a connection. And there were a few things for me when I was wrapping up my time in my district that I knew my season was changing and I wanted to help in different ways. And so I actually resigned from my position before I had a new job. And a lot of things aligned, and within a week of leaving my district, I had accepted a position with Microsoft at FlipGrid, and just feel incredibly honored and incredibly blessed to be able to be a teacher helping teachers. It's not a unique, I say common thing, because I get questions all the time. How do you move? How do you change roles? How do you? And I don't know. I don't know that it's an easy journey, except I think that when you're passionate about things and you're vocal about it, people know things about you. And I know FlipGrid knew who I was because I talked about them all the time. I invited myself to their headquarters when I happened to be in the same city visiting family. So I went after something I wanted. And that's, I think, scary. And I don't know. I'm like not articulating it well right now.
You have. What have you learned that you didn't know? Like being on the corporate side of corporations serving K-12. What have you learned from that point of view that you didn't really understand before when you were at the district?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I have loved learning about and feel like I am only just beginning is education systems around the world. And in its simplest in its simplest example is even calendar structures, right? Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere. When I think about what I'm doing here in North America, well, let me tell you, it's very different in the Southern Hemisphere. Somebody on the other side of the world, our timelines aren't even lining up. So that's a very simple example, learning about how systems work. I worked in a very progressive school district that said, choose the tool that will help you get from point A to point B. And we had freedom and flexibility in doing that. And learning how sometimes if you want to go and go fast, but sometimes systems restrict people from moving forward as fast as you feel like you're wanting to go. When decisions are made by other people and timelines kind of shift things, those are all things I learn more about every day, but I love that the heart of an educator is universal, and it's about empowering our future and building up people. And it's like falling in love with education all over again every day, seeing it on my scale from Southern California to the United States, to North America, to the world. And it's incredible. And I feel like I'm only just beginning, is how I honestly, truly feel. And it's a whole second chapter to my career that began when I turned 40, which is crazy. So I really feel like I came alive in a brand new way when I turned 40, and I have miles to go, and I cannot wait for the journey.
And that leads me to one of my questions, because it's obvious that you are an excited educator and learner. And I watched one of the videos that you have out on YouTube, and you talked about being curious and having a hunger for learning. And I was interested in, how do you see a teacher trying to develop that in their own students? Mm-hmm. And then my follow-up question for that is this: when you're a person like that, and how are you going to continue to have the kind of excitement and momentum that you have in the job that you're in right now? Or are you at a place where you'd say to yourself, I might be able to have to move to something else because I'm no longer being stimulated by what's going on at FlipGrid?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, I would encourage teachers to be that example of a lifelong learner. And oftentimes in my role as a teacher on special assignment, there were teachers who were hesitant to try new things. And when I say push all the buttons, these apps were made for you to push buttons. And they would say, wait, I was told growing up, if I push this will break. And I said, that's how technology has evolved. So when we step out of our own comfort zones and take risks, I think that's one way we can model for our students that it's safe to fail and safe to try new things, because oftentimes it doesn't click on that first try. It didn't for me in every subject, and that's what we do as lifelong learners to continue the journey. And in regards to my own journey forward, I am a daughter of a lifelong educator. My mother was a teacher, and she worked more in the special education side than general education. And she retired at 70 years old and said, I wish I were 15 years younger. I have more in me. But it was the right time for her to retire. And I love to describe her as a little firecracker. She's still going. So that's sort of the model and example.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, right. And I see it in my own family lines, because my grandfather, her father, was the same way and lived a very long life, but was always that sort of firecracker personality. And don't get me wrong, I have very quiet and very still moments. And I understand sometimes the energy is not everybody's bag, but I'm a primary teacher at my core. So the first grade teacher in me comes out always. I don't know. I just have that adventurous pull. I love to travel. I love to experience new cultures. I want to see everything on planet Earth. So I just feel like my journey is to learn and to share what I'm learning. And sometimes those are big moments and sometimes those are small moments. And that's okay because we're just learning, right? And celebrate that journey because it's different for everybody.
I'm wondering if anybody in our audience has questions for Anne. And feel free to speak out or type them in chat if you do. Doesn't matter.
Chat.
Oh, hey,
Are there
we have a video on the grid from Mr. Wesley Field already on our FlipGrid, so thank you.
Are there features and a FlipGrid that people may not be aware of?
Yeah, so actually one of the newest things we've just released is a screen recorder, and it's in beta. So
wow.
It was a feature that was requested by the community, and I love to say this. One of my friends in California always said, feedback is the breakfast of champions. And so as an educator, that feedback cycle was critical with my students. But working now at FlipGrid, we value the feedback from our community. And so they said, we want a screen recorder, we want a screen recorder. And we released a beta version of it for folks to have that. We doubled the length and time from 5 minutes to 10 minutes as a direct result of folks moving into remote learning situations and saying, I need more time. FlipGrid is 100% free. If you were not familiar with that, every aspect of FlipGrid is 100% free. There's a new student list at your grid settings that you can look and see student lists in a new ways. So definitely don't not push buttons. Push all the buttons in FlipGrid. And every year, it traditionally with the ISTE event at the end of June, of course, it's been postponed and delayed, but we plan on having a big event like we do every year called FlipGrid Live, where we're releasing new features, sharing new updates. I believe some announcements are coming even before that about new things that are coming. So I was
asking, is it possible to embed the entire grid into an LMS or for kids to easily upload? I see the upload is easy, but the entire grid, question mark?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Wesley. When you click on the share option at the grid level, you'll see the embed code right there. And you definitely can grab that embed code, pop it over into whatever platform. We do have direct LMS integration with Canvas. There are other share directly to Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams. But if you're using other things like communication devices, Remind, Seesaw, Class Dojo, it's a simple copy and paste of a URL, but there definitely is an embed option, grid or topic level or individual video as well.
And then Tanya asks, my school doesn't encourage teachers to go outside of our LMS. How much security is there for privacy?
Yeah, so this is a great question. And you as the educator are the one that creates a FlipGrid account. Students do not. You as the educator always remain in control of who has access to your grid. You can choose what grid type you would use. If you're working within a school email domain that's Google or Microsoft, you essentially sandbox your FlipGrid community to anybody who has your school email domain account. Or you create a student ID grid type, which means you as the educator place the students there and invite them to participate. With respect to all student privacy laws, it's Microsoft industry leading security measures. And so I would just encourage you, we have a fabulous site where it has all kinds of listed out every single security feature that you would want to know about. Essentially to how I shared that flip code Jacobs Institute, nobody will ever know that your grid exists unless you invite them to it and share that flip code. So based on the grid type that you select, whether you give them the secret code, etc., you're the one who's in control of who has access to it. Thanks for joining. I just saw Sarah's comment too, so.
Yeah, she said she had to leave. So,
Yeah, great questions.
what other questions?
I was going to ask you, are you currently exploring any exciting things in asynchronous learning?
Yeah, so all of FlipGrid is an asynchronous video
Right.
communication platform. And the incredible things with respect to every unique situation around the world as communities were exploring what remote looks like for them or hybrid scenarios, all of the, I don't know what else to call it except life that has existed with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic, different people's work schedules, flexibility. I love that being able to say as a teacher to fellow educators, you're not restricted by geography or time zone. So that flexibility is definitely something that plays into just creating opportunities for people to share when it's relevant and meaningful and timely for them. We have seen very unique use cases, entire communities. Like in Lincoln, Nebraska, the Bay, which is a community center, has taken all of their programming for music, skateboarding, health and wellness, the arts, photography, journalism, into an online programming with FlipGrid. We've seen graduation ceremonies take place. There was an example out of the United Kingdom. The University of Newcastle had 239 medical students recite the Hippocratic Oath on FlipGrid in a public, they have to recite it in public, and they released
Wow.
that, and it was powerful to see an entire grid community sharing that Hippocratic Oath. That's a great question. The asynchronous nature just provides flexibility and freedom.
Lauren has a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Muted. Hold on a sec.
okay.
Lawrence, can you unmute? Are you got it? It's not unmuting. Why is that?
Okay, I think you just unmuted me. Thank you. Thank you. I do have a couple of questions. First one is, how does the company make profit if the program is free to all of us?
So top down at Microsoft, they believe in empowering folks in the education system. Our CEO, Satya Nadella, is very passionate about empowering students, providing tools that are accessible for people to be empowered in unique ways. So when we go to schools and get this question from students, there are other ways. For example, this is one that students relate to. Xbox is part of Microsoft. So for example, in the gaming industry, if you purchase an Xbox game, that's revenue that's generated. And so one other revenue stream possibly is allowing other tools to be free that provide that access on a global scale. I don't know I don't know all of what has a price tag on it from Microsoft, in all honesty, but that's an example that I share. The purchase of software. I know I work on a Surface tablet, so there's hardware that people pay for, which is, some sort of income stream, but they believed, Microsoft EDU said, we believe in empowering people, and we see what FlipGrid is doing, and this is something that we want the world to have access to, and we are going to eliminate any cost. And they actually refunded people who had paid for it during the calendar year that it was acquired, no matter what part of 2018. They gave everybody their money back. So that's one way to describe it.
Great, thank you. We certainly appreciate it. My second question is, What do you see the next steps for the FlipGrid? Do you see some new featurings are in the making?
Yes, and I have been sworn to secrecy on some of the things that will be announced at the end of June. There are some really cool features that are coming that I am beside myself excited about. One of the things I'm also very excited about might be released before the end of June, so I can't wait for that. I know there are new partners coming to the Disco Library, and I'm excited about folks that are coming. But I mentioned earlier, feedback from our community drives every feature update. And there's an announcement coming soon that is a direct response to somebody saying, well, to multiple people saying, hey, we want this. Hey, we want this. Hey, this would help us. Because we take to heart that feedback, not only the positive stories that people experience, but the pain points too. And as an educator working on a product like this, I'm an advocate for teacher voice, and I explain my own pain points with use so that our team can really truly explore how to make a product that is safe and fast and fun and relevant and empowering for folks to use. So I can't give it away, Lawrence. It's a great question. If you were trying to get me to spill the beans on some features, I know you weren't. I'm teasing, but stay tuned because before too long, there's going to be some major announcements.
And Wesley has a question. If a student uploaded something inappropriate, can you quickly remove it? Or is it possible to have the content approved before display?
There absolutely is. So we call that feature moderation. And you as the educator, when you create a topic, can enable what we call topic moderation, which means you manually approve it, either as an individual or an entire batch of responses before they become public on the grid. Of course, if you find that somebody has posted something inappropriate, since you as the educator are the one inviting them to participate, you can hide it, you can remove it. Students are authorized in with their school email domain or the ID that you've created with them, so you would know who is submitting content and then can deal with on a case-by-case individual basis with those conversations as needed.
We have a question from Tanya. She says, you said that you allowed the first graders to choose their medium, video or paper. Writing skills are such an important piece to learning at this age. How did you encourage the writing skills?
Yeah, absolutely. So I still, as a first grade teacher, I still did printing practice too, letter formation, etc. There were times that we were not using devices and there were paper pencil activities, but there were choices, for example, response to literature activities where they could scan a QR code and respond that way, or print out with a paper and pencil choices. So it was just that like organic choice for them, but also there was still direct instruction regarding something that, I don't know, I'll say with air quotes, was a more traditional lesson, if you will. Regarding advertisements, no. So you could even include a topic attachment resource that was a YouTube video that would play within the FlipGrid environment and not release students over to YouTube. So no ads or anything like that.
Tanya also wanted to know if there are any advertisements.
Yeah, I just spoke to that. So no, there are not.
Okay, sorry if I asked you it again.
That's okay. No, I'm glad that you clarified it. So no advertisements. That's a great question though.
We have another question from Wesley. As it is student voice, can students start their own grid and elicit responses from other students, then submit that as a group reflection, for example?
So on all of our wording, FlipGrid is for educators to create accounts, not students. It says that when you go to create an account, if you are a student, you do not create accounts. The educators are the ones that create accounts. All of our resources and supports have that messaging in it as well. So no, unless a student does it independently and creates it, but there is not a way for students to create it and have like topics submitted to them to get to the teacher. We've seen some very unique ways that folks, especially in response to distance learning, have created group presentations where educators might facilitate calls like this and have screen recordings, if you will, and you can submit your own video file as a FlipGrid response. So sometimes those are submitted. We've seen like concerts, music concerts, where people are playing in tandem on group calls. We have seen theater departments have skits and plays that have been done. So unless students do it independently, it doesn't work in that way where they would create their own to get it into the classroom environment, since again the teacher is the one that opens it up and shares a unique code for the students to use when they add a response. Yeah, definitely. So that's an interesting point, and it goes back to no student accounts. So, and that's partially just with respect to student privacy. The intention is not for students to create the accounts. But we've seen, you know, especially in an age where students are utilizing cool tools and things like TikTok, there have been so many PE teachers over the last few months that have created dance challenges or physical education challenges inspired by TikTok, but submitted via FlipGrid. So we love to say, if you can think it, you can FlipGrid it.
And we are coming to the end of our time. If anybody else has a final question, feel free to post it up. I guess I would ask, looking forward, what opportunities excite you right now? The world's in a time of change, but with change also comes opportunities. And what's exciting you right now?
So in January, if you had asked this question, there was going to be some opportunities where I was connecting with folks in new places. I was supposed to do some work in Australia, be in classrooms in Australia. I was excited to make those connections and just shift that. I can still learn and have still connected with those same classrooms just remotely. I think the opportunity for people to see new possibilities with the way we use technology to empower students, that always excites me. And at a time where lots of folks have been forced to fast forward their own use of technology in learning communities, whether that was restricted due to access before, they didn't have the tools, they didn't know about the tools. I look forward to helping people further their practice with meaningful uses and not just in an emergency response to how do I stay connected, digging deeper, if you will, and it's taking those steps forward as a lifelong learner. And I guess it's still rooted in what I remain so passionate about is empowering people in new ways. I still look forward to my own opportunities to go a little bit deeper in some new areas. One of the things that was new to FlipGrid last year was augmented reality QR codes. And I used them in my own classroom, but even further exploring app smashing possibilities with other tools and augmented mixed reality and what that could look like when you bring it into FlipGrid. That's something I'm super excited about playing with, whether that's using something like a merge cube or co-spaces or different things like that, as well as making connections still with folks around the world and learning about what education looks like for them. And as we all shift with sort of like an unknown ... ahead of us as we consider what going back to school in 2020 fall looks like.
Right.
I think it's nothing but a learning opportunity right now because we don't know what's coming.
Being nimble is important right now and responsive, right.
I think we have one more question. I see FlipGrid as a video discussion for students. Do instructors ever use it as a delivery platform for their content and lectures?
Yeah, absolutely, Anne. That's a great question. So within FlipGrid, you have another feature right there next to that Disco Library button called Shorts, which is sort of the exact same FlipGrid camera tool that students use, but it's almost a creation space for you as educators. We see folks who are flipping their lessons all the time, creating shorts videos, bite-sized lectures, if you will, anywhere from 15 seconds to a teaching moment to a 10-minute direct teaching video. So absolutely, we've seen folks do things as simple as reading a chapter a day to their students as a read aloud, to flipping entire lectures at the university level and then asking students to respond. There's an incredible educator who is having his AP physics students partner with kindergarten students to explore sound waves through music, but he, as the AP physics instructor, did his teaching to his students first and then challenged them to take it further with this connection with young scholars in their community. So, I mean, I say it, but really, truly, if you start pushing buttons, you're going to see the possibilities are endless. And when we say, if you can think it, you can FlipGrid it, is honestly true.
Do we have anything else?
All right.
Your enthusiasm and your excitement for learning is just so dynamic and so contagious. And I don't know where you find all the energy that you have, because you can see that you truly love learning and that you're committed to helping other people learn too. So we really thank you for being with us tonight. And I'm sure Dr. Dawley wants to say something also, but I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I was going to say the same thing. I always love being around you, Anne, because of your positivity, your high energy, your passion for students, student voice. And I learned new things tonight. So in addition to catching up with you, which was amazing, thank you, because you took me a little deeper into features of FlipGrid that I didn't understand. And I'll be trying it out in class next week. Just a heads up, everybody. A little more deeply.
I appreciate it so much, the opportunity to connect with you again. I know, Lisa, we've known each other for years and years. It's so fun to connect again. Lynn, thank you.
Thank you.
And the work that you're doing at Jacobs Institute and beyond is so awesome. That flip code is not going to go away. And Lisa, I can connect with you and I'll give you that flip code if you want it.
Thank you.
Yeah, feel free to. And what I mean by giving it is simply because I'm using it now. I'll change my flip code and it'll make it available again to anybody in the world. So I'll make sure you grab it. But feel free to use that flipgrid.com and type in Jacobs Institute and have at it over the next few days. Push buttons and play to learn. And my first name is Anne, A-N-N. Anne at flipgrid.com is a super easy way to be in touch with me. Besides that, if you go to flipgrid.com and click on the resources, you'll find my email there as well. But please don't ever
share that in chat because we're recording. And flipgrid.com.
Yep.
And then remind me, you've given it before, but you're active on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle, Anne?
Yeah, so Anne Kozma 723 at Twitter.
And I won't ask what the 723 stands for.
Oh, July 23rd.
Oh.
No, I mean, yeah, but I appreciate you asking me to connect. And for those of you joining in, thank you so much for taking some time to just be part of a conversation. And let me know if I can help in any way, please.
Thank you so much, Anne. And thank everybody else for sharing time with us tonight. It was really good to see everybody. Wesley, even though you're upside down, it was good to see you too.
He said, is he coming in from Perth, from Western Australia? Yeah. Awesome.
Yes. You're from Perth, right, Wesley?
Yep, that's it. And we're all thinking of you very much so from down here. So we hope you all stay safe and well and things get better shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. It was fantastic.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you again.